Marcus Johnson stood in front of the tall iron gates of Whitmore Academy. The school looked like a castle from old movies. Big stone walls rose up to the sky. Windows sparkled in the morning sun. Everything looked perfect and expensive. Marcus took a deep breath. His hand shook a little as he held his new school bag. Inside the bag were his books, notebooks, and the letter that changed his life. The scholarship letter. Full ride to one of the best schools in the state. "You can do this," he whispered to himself. The same words his mother said to him that morning. Marcus was 16 years old. He was tall and thin with kind brown eyes. His hair was cut short and neat. He wore the school uniform, white shirt, blue tie, and dark pants. Everything was new and still had store tags on them yesterday. His mother worked 2 jobs to buy these clothes. She was a nurse at the city hospital. During the day, she helped sick people get better. At night, she cleaned office buildings downtown. She never complained, but Marcus saw how tired she was. "This is your chance, baby," she told him the night before. "You're the smartest kid I know. Don't let anyone tell you different." Marcus walked through the gates. Other students were arriving too. Most came in expensive cars. Drivers in uniforms opened doors for them. Parents kissed them goodbye and drove away in shiny cars that cost more than his mother made in 2 years. Marcus had taken 3 buses to get here. He left home at 6 in the morning. The bus ride took an hour and a half, but he didn't mind. This was his dream school. At his old school, Lincoln High, Marcus was the top student. He loved math and science more than anything. His teachers said he was special. They said he could become anything he wanted. A doctor, an engineer, maybe even a scientist who discovers new things. But Lincoln High didn't have the best classes. The science lab was old. Many books were falling apart. Some teachers tried their best, but they didn't have good supplies to work with. Whitmore Academy was different. This school had everything. New computers, amazing science labs, and teachers who went to the best colleges. Students from here went to Harvard, Yale, and MIT. This was where smart kids became successful adults. Marcus found the main office. A lady with gray hair and glasses sat behind a big desk. Her name tag said Mrs. Peterson. "Excuse me," Marcus said politely. "I'm Marcus Johnson. Today is my first day." Mrs. Peterson looked up from her computer. She studied Marcus for a moment. Her smile seemed forced and didn't reach her eyes. "Oh yes," she said slowly. "The scholarship student. Let me find your papers." She looked through files on her desk. Marcus noticed how she said scholarship student like it was something bad. "Here we are," Mrs. Peterson said. She handed him a paper with his class schedule. "Your locker number is on there too. Do you need someone to show you around?" "No, thank you," Marcus said. "I looked at the school map online. I think I can find my way." Mrs. Peterson nodded. "Well, good luck then." Marcus walked away from the office. He felt her eyes watching him as he left. The hallways were amazing. Clean floors that shined like mirrors, walls covered with pictures of students who graduated and became famous. Doctors, lawyers, business owners, and politicians. All smiling in their success. Marcus found his locker. The number was 247. He put in the combination and opened it. Inside was clean and empty, waiting for his things. "Hey, you must be new." Marcus turned around. A girl with long blonde hair was standing next to him. She wore the same school uniform, but somehow it looked more expensive on her. Her shoes were shiny leather. Her bag had a designer name on it. "I'm Sarah," she said with a friendly smile. "Sarah Chen. Marcus Johnson," he replied. "Nice to meet you. What classes are you taking?" Sarah asked. Marcus showed her his schedule. Sarah's eyes got wide. "Wow, advanced physics with Mr. Brennan? That's like the hardest class in school. And advanced math too? You must be really smart." Marcus felt proud. "I like math and science. They make sense to me." "That's so cool," Sarah said. "I'm in advanced physics too. We can walk there together if you want." "That would be great, thanks." They walked down the hall together. Sarah pointed out different rooms and told him about the teachers. She seemed nice and normal, not stuck up like Marcus worried the rich kids might be. "Where did you go to school before?" Sarah asked. "Lincoln High downtown," Marcus said. Sarah nodded. "I heard they have some good teachers there. My dad sometimes talks about schools in the city." Marcus relaxed a little. Sarah didn't act weird when he mentioned his old school. Maybe not all the students here would judge him. They reached the physics classroom. The door was heavy wood with a small window. Through the glass, Marcus could see the classroom inside. It was bigger than any classroom at Lincoln High. Lab tables were arranged in rows. Each table had new equipment and tools. At the front was a smartboard that could connect to computers. "Mr. Brennan can be tough," Sarah whispered, "but he knows a lot about physics. If you're really good at science, you'll probably like his class." Marcus felt excited. This was what he had dreamed about. Real science classes with real equipment. He could learn things here that weren't possible at his old school. The bell rang. Students started filing into the classroom. Marcus followed Sarah inside. He looked around at his new classmates. There were about 20 students total. Most were white or Asian. Marcus was one of only 2 black students in the room. The other was a girl sitting in the back. Marcus wasn't surprised. His mother had warned him that Whitmore Academy didn't have many students who looked like them. But she said that didn't matter. What mattered was learning and getting a good education. "Just focus on your work," she had told him. "Show them how smart you are." Marcus found a seat in the middle of the room. Sarah sat next to him. Other students were talking quietly while they waited for the teacher. Then the door opened and Mr. Brennan walked in. He was a white man in his 50s, medium height with thin brown hair that was turning gray. He wore a suit and tie. His face was serious, almost angry. He carried a coffee cup and a stack of papers. Mr. Brennan walked to the front of the class without looking at the students. He set his coffee down and opened his laptop. "Good morning," he said in a flat voice. His eyes moved across the room, looking at each student. When his gaze reached Marcus, it stopped. Mr. Brennan stared at him for several long seconds. Marcus felt uncomfortable but tried to smile politely. Mr. Brennan didn't smile back. His expression was cold and unwelcoming. "I see we have a new student," Mr. Brennan said, still looking at Marcus. "Would you like to introduce yourself?" Marcus stood up. "Yes, sir. I'm Marcus Johnson. I just transferred here from Lincoln High. I'm excited to be in your physics class." "Lincoln High," Mr. Brennan repeated slowly. "That's quite a change. I hope you can keep up with the work here. Our standards are very high." The way he said it made Marcus feel small, like Mr. Brennan didn't think he belonged here. "I'll work hard, sir," Marcus said. "We'll see," Mr. Brennan replied. Marcus sat back down. His excitement was starting to fade. Something about Mr. Brennan's tone worried him. Sarah leaned over and whispered, "Don't worry. He's like that with everyone at first." Marcus nodded and tried to focus on the positive. This was still his dream school. This was still his chance for a better future. He wouldn't let one unfriendly teacher ruin that. Mr. Brennan started the lesson. He was talking about quantum mechanics, the study of very tiny particles that make up everything in the universe. It was complicated stuff, but Marcus understood it. He had read about quantum mechanics in books from the library. As the class went on, Marcus started to feel better. The material was challenging but fascinating. This was exactly the kind of deep science learning he had wanted. Maybe Mr. Brennan would warm up to him once he saw how much Marcus loved physics. Maybe this would work out after all. Marcus had no idea how wrong he was. The next morning, Marcus walked into physics class feeling hopeful. He had spent the evening reading ahead in the textbook. The chapter on wave functions was difficult, but he worked through every problem. He was ready to participate and show Mr. Brennan how serious he was about learning. Marcus took the same seat as yesterday. Sarah waved at him from across the room. A few other students nodded hello. He was starting to feel like he might fit in here. Mr. Brennan entered the classroom exactly on time. He set his coffee down and looked around the room. His eyes found Marcus and stayed there for a moment longer than necessary. "Today we'll continue with quantum mechanics," Mr. Brennan announced. "Who can tell me what we learned about particle behavior yesterday?" Several hands went up. Marcus raised his hand too. He knew the answer and wanted to show his understanding. Mr. Brennan looked right past Marcus and called on a blond boy in the front row. "Very good, Tyler," Mr. Brennan said after the boy answered. "Excellent understanding." The lesson continued. Mr. Brennan asked more questions. Marcus kept raising his hand, but the teacher never called on him. Instead, he picked other students who sometimes gave wrong answers. When a girl named Jessica gave an incorrect response about electron spin, Mr. Brennan said, "Close, but not quite right. Can someone help Jessica out?" Marcus shot his hand up immediately. He knew the right answer. But Mr. Brennan looked around the room like Marcus was invisible. "Anyone?" Mr. Brennan asked again. Finally, he called on David, a boy who sat near the window. David gave the same wrong answer as Jessica. Mr. Brennan frowned but didn't correct him harshly. "That's a common mistake," he said gently. "The correct answer is that electrons have intrinsic angular momentum." Marcus lowered his hand. That was exactly what he was going to say. Why wouldn't Mr. Brennan let him answer? After class, Marcus approached the teacher's desk. Mr. Brennan was packing up his papers. "Excuse me, Mr. Brennan," Marcus said politely. "I noticed you didn't call on me today. I'd like to participate more in class discussions." Mr. Brennan looked up with cold eyes. "Mr. Johnson, isn't it?" "Yes, sir." "I think you should focus on listening and learning before you worry about participating. This material is quite advanced, much more difficult than what you're used to." Marcus felt his face get hot. "Sir, I've been reading ahead in the textbook. I understand the concepts we're covering." Mr. Brennan gave a thin smile that wasn't friendly at all. "Reading and understanding are two different things. I've been teaching physics for 20 years. I know when students are ready to contribute and when they need to observe. But I really do understand." "Mr. Johnson," Mr. Brennan interrupted. "Perhaps you would be more comfortable in regular physics. The guidance counselor could arrange a transfer. There's no shame in taking classes that match your background." Marcus stared at him. "My background? Students from different schools have different levels of preparation. It takes time to catch up to Whitmore standards." The way he said it made Marcus feel sick. Mr. Brennan wasn't talking about schools. He was talking about something else entirely. "I earned my place in this class," Marcus said quietly. "My grades qualified me for advanced placement." "Grades can be inflated at some institutions," Mr. Brennan replied. "Real understanding shows itself over time." Marcus wanted to argue more, but other students were coming in for the next class. He gathered his books and left. In the hallway, Sarah caught up with him. "Hey, you okay? You look upset." Marcus wasn't sure what to say. He didn't want to cause trouble on his second day. Maybe he was misunderstanding Mr. Brennan's attitude. "Just adjusting to the new school," he said. But over the next few days, a pattern became clear. Mr. Brennan treated Marcus differently than every other student. When Marcus arrived early to class, Mr. Brennan would watch him suspiciously. If Marcus took out his phone to check the time, the teacher would make comments about students who weren't focused on learning. During lessons, Mr. Brennan continued to ignore Marcus's raised hand. Even when no other students volunteered to answer questions, the teacher would wait in uncomfortable silence rather than call on Marcus. When Marcus finally got frustrated and blurted out an answer without being called on, Mr. Brennan snapped at him. "Mr. Johnson, we raise our hands and wait to be recognized in this classroom. That might not have been the rule at your previous school, but here we have standards." Marcus felt his classmates staring at him. His face burned with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, sir. I was just trying to help. Help by following the rules," Mr. Brennan said sharply. The worst part was how Mr. Brennan graded Marcus's work. When Marcus turned in his first homework assignment, he was confident he had done well. He had worked on every problem carefully and checked his answers twice. When the papers were returned, Marcus saw a C+ written at the top in red ink. Below it were comments like "sloppy work" and "needs improvement," written next to problems that Marcus knew were correct. He looked at Sarah's paper next to him. She had gotten an A, but Marcus could see that she had made the same small calculation error that Mr. Brennan had marked wrong on his paper. Somehow Sarah hadn't lost points for it. After class, Marcus stayed behind again. "Mr. Brennan, I think there might be a mistake on my homework grade. Some of the problems you marked wrong are actually correct." Mr. Brennan took the paper and looked at it without really examining the work. "I don't see any mistakes in my grading. Your mathematical reasoning is weak, and your presentation is unclear. But if you look at problem number 5, Mr. Johnson, are you questioning my expertise? I have a PhD in physics from Harvard University. I think I can grade a simple homework assignment." Marcus felt trapped. How could he argue with a teacher who refused to listen? "I'm just trying to understand where I went wrong so I can improve." What you need to understand is that physics requires precision and clarity of thought. Some students have natural aptitude for this kind of reasoning. Others struggle with abstract concepts. The message was clear. Mr. Brennan didn't think Marcus had natural aptitude. "Maybe you should consider dropping down to regular physics," the teacher continued. "There's no disgrace in finding your appropriate level." Marcus left the classroom feeling defeated. This wasn't about his ability. He knew he understood the material as well as anyone in the class. This was about something else entirely. At lunch, Marcus sat alone at first. He was thinking about his conversation with Mr. Brennan when Sarah and two other students from physics class joined him. "Mind if we sit here?" Sarah asked. "Sure," Marcus said, grateful for the company. "I'm David," said a Hispanic boy with friendly eyes. "And this is Emma." Emma was a quiet girl with red hair and freckles. She smiled shyly at Marcus. "How are you liking Whitmore so far?" David asked. Marcus wasn't sure how honest to be. "It's different from my old school. The classes are definitely more challenging. Mr. Brennan can be pretty tough," Emma said softly. "He made me cry during my first week here." "Really?" Marcus asked. "Oh yeah," David said. "He told me my accent made it hard for him to understand my questions. Said I should practice speaking more clearly." Sarah frowned. "He said that? That's awful. He picks on different people," Emma added. "Last year he told this girl Hannah that maybe she should focus more on liberal arts since science required logical thinking." Marcus felt a little better knowing he wasn't the only one Mr. Brennan treated badly. But he also noticed something. David was Hispanic, Emma was a girl in a male-dominated field, and Marcus was black. Mr. Brennan seemed to have problems with students who were different from him. "Has anyone ever complained about him?" Marcus asked. The three students looked at each other uncomfortably. "His dad is on the school board," Sarah said quietly, "and he's been here forever. Teachers like him don't usually get in trouble. Plus, he's careful," David added. "He never says anything directly. He just makes you feel like you don't belong." Marcus spent the rest of lunch thinking about what his new friends had told him. Mr. Brennan had a pattern of making certain students feel unwelcome. The question was, what could Marcus do about it? That afternoon in physics class, Marcus decided to try a different approach. Instead of raising his hand to answer questions, he focused on taking detailed notes and staying quiet. But even this didn't satisfy Mr. Brennan. "Mr. Johnson," the teacher said suddenly in the middle of explaining electromagnetic waves, "you seem distracted today. Is the material too difficult to follow?" Marcus looked up, startled. He had been paying close attention and taking notes. "No, sir, I'm following along." "Then perhaps you can explain what I just said about wave interference." Marcus knew the answer. Wave interference occurred when two waves met, and either strengthened or weakened each other depending on their phase relationship. When two waves meet, they can either add together constructively or cancel each other out destructively, depending on whether their peaks and valleys line up. Marcus said clearly. It was a perfect answer. Mr. Brennan looked annoyed that Marcus had gotten it right. "Lucky guess," he muttered, then continued with the lesson. Marcus felt his anger growing. Nothing he did was good enough for this teacher. If he participated, he was being disruptive. If he stayed quiet, he was distracted. If he answered correctly, it was just luck. After class, Marcus walked slowly to his locker. Marcus had been at Whitmore Academy for 3 weeks. Every day in physics class felt like a battle he couldn't win. No matter how hard he studied or how well he knew the material, Mr. Brennan found ways to make him feel unwelcome. Today was different, though. Mr. Brennan had announced they would be covering quantum entanglement, one of the most difficult topics in modern physics. Marcus had spent the weekend reading about it from multiple sources. He even watched university-level lectures online to make sure he understood the concepts completely. As Marcus walked into the classroom, he felt confident. This was his chance to show everyone, including Mr. Brennan, that he belonged in advanced physics. The classroom was buzzing with nervous energy. Other students were flipping through their textbooks, trying to review before class started. Quantum entanglement was known to be one of the hardest topics they would cover all year. "This is going to be brutal," whispered Tyler, the blonde boy who usually answered questions correctly. "I read the chapter 3 times and still don't get it," added Jessica, looking worried. Marcus took his usual seat and calmly organized his notebook. He wasn't worried like the others. He understood quantum entanglement better than most college students did. Mr. Brennan entered the room carrying his coffee and a stack of papers. He looked around the classroom with his usual stern expression. "Good morning," he said coldly. "Today we begin our study of quantum entanglement, which Einstein called spooky action at a distance. This is graduate-level material that challenges even the brightest students." He paused and his eyes found Marcus in the crowd. Some of you may find this topic beyond your current capabilities. There's no shame in acknowledging when material is too advanced. Marcus felt the familiar sting of Mr. Brennan's words, but he didn't let it show on his face. Today would be different. Mr. Brennan began explaining the basic concept. When two particles become entangled, measuring one particle instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. This seems to violate the speed of light, which Einstein said was impossible. He drew diagrams on the smartboard showing entangled particles. Marcus noticed that the teacher made a small error in one of his drawings, but he didn't raise his hand to correct it. He had learned that pointing out Mr. Brennan's mistakes only made things worse. Now, Mr. Brennan continued, this phenomenon has been proven in laboratories around the world. Who can explain why this doesn't actually violate relativity? Several hands went up slowly. The students weren't confident about this difficult question. Marcus raised his hand immediately. He knew the answer perfectly. Quantum entanglement didn't allow information to travel faster than light, because the measurements appeared random until you compared them with the other particles. Measurements. Mr. Brennan looked around the room, deliberately avoiding Marcus's raised hand. Jessica? He called on the girl who had been worried about the chapter. Jessica stammered, maybe because the particles are connected somehow? That's not really an explanation, Mr. Brennan said gently. Anyone else? More hands went up. Marcus kept his hand raised, but Mr. Brennan continued to ignore him. Tyler, I think it's because the information doesn't actually travel between the particles, Tyler said uncertainly. Getting closer, but not quite right, Mr. Brennan replied. Let me give you a hint. Think about what happens when you measure one particle. Marcus's hand was still up. He was one of the few students who hadn't been called on yet. Several classmates were looking at him, wondering why Mr. Brennan wouldn't let him answer. Sarah. Mr. Brennan called on Marcus's friend. The measurements look random by themselves? Sarah guessed. Yes, that's part of it. But why is that important? The room fell silent. Students were running out of ideas. Marcus's arm was getting tired from holding it up, but he refused to put it down. Finally, David called out, Why don't you ask Marcus? He's had his hand up the whole time. Mr. Brennan's face tightened with anger. Mr. Rodriguez, we don't call out in this classroom, and I decide who answers questions. But Marcus obviously knows the answer. Emma said quietly, It seems unfair not to let him try. Mr. Brennan's eyes flashed with rage. Marcus could see that the teacher was losing control of the situation. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Brennan said slowly, since your classmates seem to think you have all the answers, why don't you enlighten us? Marcus stood up, his heart beating fast. This was his moment. Quantum entanglement doesn't violate relativity because no usable information travels faster than light. When you measure one entangled particle, you get a random result. The other particle will have a correlated result. But you can't know what it is until you communicate through normal channels that are limited by the speed of light. So you can't use entanglement to send messages or information instantaneously. The classroom was completely quiet. Marcus had given a perfect detailed explanation that showed deep understanding of both quantum mechanics and relativity theory. Mr. Brennan stared at him with undisguised hatred. Sit down. Mr. Johnson, he said coldly. Marcus sat down, confused. He had answered correctly and thoroughly. Why wasn't Mr. Brennan acknowledging that? That answer, Mr. Brennan continued, was obviously memorized from somewhere, probably copied word for word from an online source. Marcus felt like he had been slapped. Sir, I didn't copy anything. I understand the concepts. Mr. Johnson, I find it highly unlikely that you could provide such a detailed explanation without looking it up beforehand. In fact, I'm beginning to suspect you've been cheating throughout this course. The accusation hung in the air like a bomb. Students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Marcus felt his face burning with embarrassment and anger. I haven't cheated on anything, Marcus said firmly. I study hard and I understand the material. Really? Mr. Brennan said with a cruel smile. Then you won't mind proving it. Empty your pockets and your bag on your desk now. Marcus couldn't believe what was happening. You want me to empty my pockets? Unless you have something to hide, Mr. Brennan replied. If you're not cheating, you should have no problem showing the class that you don't have any notes or electronic devices. Marcus looked around the room. Every student was staring at him. Some looked sympathetic, others just curious. He felt humiliated, but he also knew he had nothing to hide. Fine, Marcus said quietly. He stood up and began emptying his pockets. He pulled out his wallet, some loose change, a pen, and his student ID. No phone, no notes, nothing that could be used for cheating. Your bag too, Mr. Brennan demanded. Marcus opened his backpack and dumped everything onto his desk. Textbooks, notebooks, pencils, calculators, and his lunch. Again, nothing suspicious. Mr. Brennan walked over to Marcus's desk and picked through his belongings like a police officer searching for evidence. He opened Marcus's notebooks and flipped through them. These notes are very detailed, Mr. Brennan said suspiciously. Almost too detailed for a student of your background. I like to take good notes, Marcus replied. Trying to keep his voice steady, Mr. Brennan picked up Marcus's physics textbook and shook it, as if expecting hidden papers to fall out. When nothing happened, he looked disappointed. Where's your phone? He asked. I don't bring it to class, Marcus said. You told us on the first day that phones weren't allowed. This seemed to frustrate Mr. Brennan even more. He had been so sure he would find evidence of cheating. Sit down, he finally said. Marcus began putting his things back in his bag. His hands were shaking slightly from anger and embarrassment. The other students watched him with sympathy and confusion. Now, Mr. Brennan announced to the class, since Mr. Johnson claims to understand quantum mechanics so well, let's see if he can solve a real problem. Without any help, he walked to the smartboard and began writing a complex equation involving quantum field, operators, and mathematical symbols that most high school students had never seen. Solve this, Mr. Brennan commanded. Show us how smart you really are. Marcus looked at the equation. It was extremely advanced, involving concepts from graduate-level physics. This wasn't high school material at all. Mr. Brennan was setting him up to fail in front of everyone. But Marcus had read about quantum field theory in his extra studying. He didn't understand it completely, but he recognized some of the mathematical structures. This is graduate-level material, Marcus said calmly. It's not part of the high school curriculum, so you can't solve it? Mr. Brennan asked with satisfaction. I can try, Marcus replied. He walked to the board and picked up a marker. The equation was about calculating the probability amplitude for particle interactions. Marcus began working through it step by step, using what he remembered from advanced textbooks. The classroom was dead silent. Even Mr. Brennan seemed surprised that Marcus was attempting the problem. Marcus worked for several minutes, writing out intermediate steps and explaining his reasoning. He made some mistakes and had to backtrack, but he showed genuine understanding of the advanced concepts. Finally, he stepped back from the board. I can't solve it completely, he admitted. Some of the mathematical techniques are beyond what I've learned, but I can set up the problem correctly and explain what each term represents. Mr. Brennan studied the board with growing anger. Marcus had done far better than expected. His work showed real mathematical sophistication and understanding of advanced physics concepts. After the humiliation in class, Marcus threw himself into his studies with desperate intensity. He spent every free moment reading physics textbooks, solving practice problems, and watching online lectures. If Mr. Brennan wanted to question his knowledge, Marcus would make sure his understanding was absolutely perfect. But no matter how hard he worked, his grades kept getting worse. Marcus's latest homework assignment came back with a D+ written in red ink at the top. He stared at the paper in disbelief. He had spent 4 hours working on those problems, checking every calculation 3 times. He looked over at Sarah's paper. She had gotten a B+ for work that was nearly identical to his. In fact, Marcus could see that Sarah had made an error in problem number 7 that he had gotten right. Yet somehow his correct answer was marked wrong while her mistake went unnoticed. Marcus raised his hand. Mr. Brennan, I think there's an error in my grading. The teacher looked up from his desk with irritation. What now, Mr. Johnson? Problem 7. I got the right answer, but you marked it wrong. Mr. Brennan walked over and glanced at the paper without really examining it. Your work is sloppy, and your reasoning is unclear. Even if you stumbled onto the correct number, you didn't demonstrate proper understanding. Marcus pointed to his work. But I showed every step. I used the same method we learned in class. Mr. Johnson, are you questioning my professional judgment again? Perhaps you should focus less on complaining about grades and more on actually learning the material. The unfairness was so obvious that other students were starting to notice. Marcus heard whispers around the room. That's not right, someone murmured. His answer is clearly correct. another student said quietly. Mr. Brennan's face reddened. He didn't like having his authority questioned, even indirectly. "Class, let's continue with today's lesson," he said sharply. "Some people need to learn that physics requires precision and intellectual honesty." Marcus felt the familiar burn of shame and anger. Every interaction with Mr. Brennan left him feeling smaller and more defeated. The pattern continued for weeks. Marcus would turn in excellent work and receive poor grades. Meanwhile, students who made obvious mistakes received praise and high marks. The discrimination was becoming impossible to ignore. One afternoon, Marcus decided to try a different approach. He stayed after class to speak with Mr. Brennan privately. "Sir, I'm really struggling in your class despite studying very hard. Could you give me some advice on how to improve?" Mr. Brennan looked up from grading papers. "Mr. Johnson, some students have natural talent for scientific thinking, and others don't. No amount of studying can create ability that simply isn't there." "But I do understand the material," Marcus insisted. "I can explain every concept we've covered." "Understanding and truly comprehending are different things," Mr. Brennan replied coldly. "Physics requires a certain type of logical mind. Not everyone is cut out for advanced scientific study." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "Are you saying I'm not smart enough for physics?" "I'm saying you should consider your options carefully. There are many fields that might be better suited to your background and preparation." Marcus stared at him. "My background?" "Students from certain schools and communities often struggle with the rigor required here at Whitmore." "It's not your fault, but it is reality." The racism was barely disguised. Now, Mr. Brennan was essentially telling Marcus that black students from inner-city schools couldn't handle advanced academics. "I had a 4.0 GPA at Lincoln High," Marcus said quietly. "I was valedictorian. I scored in the 99th percentile on standardized tests. Grade inflation is common in urban schools," Mr. Brennan replied dismissively. "Test scores can be misleading. Real academic ability shows itself over time in rigorous environments." Marcus felt tears threatening at the corners of his eyes. He refused to let this man see him cry. "I see," he said carefully. "Thank you for your time." Marcus left the classroom feeling destroyed. All his life he had believed that hard work and intelligence could overcome any obstacle. But Mr. Brennan was showing him that some barriers couldn't be broken through effort alone. That evening, Marcus sat at his desk trying to work on a research paper for Mr. Brennan's class. The assignment was to choose a topic in modern physics and write a detailed analysis. Marcus had picked quantum computing, a field that fascinated him. He spent weeks researching the topic, reading scientific journals and academic papers that were far beyond high school level. He learned about quantum algorithms, error correction, and the potential applications of quantum computers. The final paper was 20 pages long and included concepts that many college students wouldn't understand. Marcus was proud of his work. It was the best research he had ever done. He included proper citations, clear explanations, and even some original ideas about how quantum computers might solve certain mathematical problems. When he turned in the paper, Marcus felt confident for the first time in weeks. This would show Mr. Brennan that he belonged in advanced physics. 2 weeks later, the papers were returned. Marcus looked at his grade and felt sick. -. Below the grade Mr. Brennan had written, clearly plagiarized. "This level of analysis is far beyond your capabilities. See me after class." Marcus read the comment 3 times, unable to believe what he was seeing. His best work, weeks of research and careful writing, had been dismissed as cheating. After class, Marcus approached Mr. Brennan's desk with the paper in his shaking hands. "You wrote that I plagiarized this paper," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. "That's correct. The sophistication of the analysis and the technical language used are not consistent with your previous work." "Because my previous work was graded unfairly," Marcus replied. "This paper represents my true abilities." Mr. Brennan smiled coldly. "Mr. Johnson, I've been teaching for 20 years. I know plagiarism when I see it. You clearly copied this from graduate-level sources. I cited all my sources properly. You can check every reference. Citing sources doesn't excuse copying ideas and analysis. You lack the mathematical background to understand quantum computing at this level." Marcus felt his carefully controlled composure beginning to crack. "How can you say I lack mathematical background? You've never given me a fair chance to demonstrate what I know." Your attitude is becoming a problem, Mr. Johnson. Perhaps it's time to consider whether you're truly a good fit for this institution. The threat was clear. Mr. Brennan wasn't just trying to fail Marcus in physics. He was suggesting that Marcus didn't belong at Whitmore Academy at all. "You can't do this to me," Marcus said desperately. "I worked so hard on that paper. I learned things that most high school students never even hear about. If you continue to argue with me about this grade, I'll have no choice but to report you for academic dishonesty. That would go on your permanent record and could affect your college applications." Marcus stared at him in horror. Mr. Brennan was threatening to destroy his future over a paper that he knew perfectly well wasn't plagiarized. "You know I didn't cheat," Marcus whispered. "I know what I see in your work. Now I suggest you focus on improving your study habits and accepting criticism gracefully." Marcus walked out of the classroom feeling completely defeated. In the hallway, he leaned against a locker and fought back tears. Sarah found him there a few minutes later. "Marcus, what's wrong?" He showed her the paper and Mr. Brennan's comments. Sarah read them with growing outrage. "This is insane," she said. "I read parts of your paper when you were working on it. It was brilliant. There's no way this is plagiarized. He's going to report me for academic dishonesty if I complain about the grade," Marcus said miserably. "He can't do that. It's not fair." "Fair doesn't seem to matter here," Marcus replied. That night, Marcus called his mother from his room. She was working a late shift at the hospital, but she always had time to talk to him. "How's school going, baby?" she asked. Marcus almost told her everything. About Mr. Brennan's discrimination, the unfair grades, the accusations of cheating. But when he heard the exhaustion in his mother's voice, he couldn't do it. His mother was working herself to death to pay for his opportunity at Whitmore Academy. She had dreams of him becoming a doctor or engineer, making a better life than she ever could. How could he tell her that those dreams were being crushed by a racist teacher? "School's fine, Mom, just working hard. That's my boy. I'm so proud of you. You're going to show them all how smart you are." After he hung up, Marcus sat in his room staring at his physics textbook. He had always loved science, but now the sight of equations and formulas just reminded him of his daily humiliation. The next day in physics class, Mr. Brennan made an announcement that felt like a knife in Marcus's heart. "Class, I want to discuss the recent research papers you submitted. Most of you did excellent work and showed real understanding of complex topics. However, some papers raised concerns about academic integrity." He looked directly at Marcus as he spoke. "Let me be clear. At Whitmore Academy, we have zero tolerance for cheating. Students who submit work beyond their capabilities will face serious consequences." Several classmates glanced at Marcus sympathetically. They knew who Mr. Brennan was talking about. "Furthermore," the teacher continued, "I'm concerned that some students may be struggling more than they're willing to admit." Marcus was sitting alone in the library during lunch period, staring at his physics textbook without really reading it. The words on the page blurred together as his mind wandered to thoughts of transferring. Back to Lincoln High, maybe it would be better to be the top student at a regular school than to struggle at a place where he wasn't wanted. "Mind if I sit here?" Marcus looked up to see Sarah standing next to his table with her lunch tray. Behind her were David and Emma, his friends from physics class. "Sure," Marcus said quietly, moving his books to make room. The three students sat down, but instead of eating, they all looked at Marcus with serious expressions. "We need to talk," Sarah said in a low voice, "about what's happening in Mr. Brennan's class." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "What do you mean?" "We mean the way he treats you," David said firmly. "It's not okay, and we can't just sit by and watch it anymore." Emma nodded. "We've been talking about it. What he's doing is wrong, and we want to help." Marcus looked around nervously. The library was mostly empty, but he still worried about being overheard. "I don't want you guys to get in trouble because of me," he said. "We're already in trouble," Sarah replied. "We're watching a teacher destroy a good student's confidence and academic future. That makes us part of the problem if we don't do something." Marcus felt a spark of hope for the first time in weeks. Someone else could see what was happening. He wasn't imagining it, but what can we do? He asked. "He's a teacher. Nobody's going to believe students over him." Sarah reached into her backpack and pulled out her phone. "Actually, they might. I have been recording his classes." Marcus stared at her in shock. "You've been what?" "Recording," she repeated. "Every class for the past 2 weeks. I have him on video treating you differently than everyone else. I have audio of him making discriminatory comments. Is that legal? Emma asked nervously. In this state, only one person in a conversation needs to consent to recording, David said. I looked it up. As long as Sarah consents to recording herself, she's not breaking any laws. Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. Why would you risk getting in trouble for me? Sarah's eyes flashed with anger. Because what he's doing is disgusting. My parents didn't immigrate to this country and work their whole lives so I could go to a school where teachers discriminate against students. Plus, David added, he's done it to me too. Remember when he said my accent made it hard for him to understand? I've been thinking about that. I don't have an accent. I was born here. But I look Hispanic, so he assumed I was foreign. Emma nodded. And he made that comment about me not being logical enough for science because I'm a girl. I thought it was just one mean comment. But now I see it's part of a pattern. Marcus felt overwhelmed by their support. He had been so focused on his own struggle that he hadn't realized his friends were fighting similar battles. What exactly do you have on the recordings? He asked Sarah. She pulled out earbuds and handed one to Marcus. Listen to this from yesterday's class. Marcus put in the earbud and Sarah played a recording on her phone. He could hear Mr. Brennan's voice clearly. Some students may find themselves in over their heads in advanced courses. There's no dishonor in admitting when you've reached your limits and transferring to more appropriate classes. He's talking about me, Marcus said. Obviously, but listen to what he says right after you left class yesterday. Sarah fast-forwarded the recording. Marcus heard Mr. Brennan's voice again. Students from certain backgrounds often struggle with the intellectual demands of rigorous academic environments. It's not their fault, but we must be realistic about capabilities. Marcus pulled out the earbud, feeling sick. Hearing his teacher's discriminatory words played back was even worse than experiencing them in person. That's not even the worst part, Sarah said grimly. I have him on video giving you lower grades for the same quality work as other students. I recorded him ignoring your raised hand for entire class periods while calling on students with wrong answers. How did you get video of the grading? Marcus asked. I sit next to you, remember? I can see both our papers when they're returned. I've been filming with my phone in my lap. It's not perfect quality, but you can clearly see the grades and the work. David leaned forward. Sarah also saved copies of your research paper before you turned it in. We all read it. There's no way that was plagiarized. It was original analysis based on properly cited sources. Marcus felt tears welling up in his eyes, but this time they were tears of gratitude rather than despair. I can't believe you guys are doing this for me. We're not just doing it for you, Emma said softly. We're doing it because it's right, and because if we don't stop him now, he'll do it to other students. Sarah closed her phone and looked around the table. But we need more than just recordings. We need to build a real case that the school administration can't ignore. What do you mean? Marcus asked. I mean, we need to find other students he's discriminated against. We need documentation going back years if possible, and we need to approach this strategically. David nodded. My cousin graduated from Whitmore 3 years ago. She's Latina, and she always said Mr. Brennan made her feel unwelcome in his class. She might be willing to talk about her experience. That's a good start, Sarah said. We need to find as many former students as possible who had similar experiences. Emma spoke up quietly. My older brother is in college now, but he had Mr. Brennan 2 years ago. He's gay, and he said the teacher made homophobic comments. He dropped out of advanced physics because of it. Marcus felt a mixture of anger and sadness. How many students had Mr. Brennan driven away over the years? How many dreams had he crushed? But who would we report this to? Marcus asked. You said yourself that Mr. Brennan's father is on the school board. Sarah smiled for the first time that day. That's where I have an advantage. My father is a civil rights lawyer. He specializes in discrimination cases. If we can build a strong enough case, he can help us present it properly. Your dad would do that? Marcus asked. Are you kidding? When I told him what was happening, he was furious. He said discrimination in education is one of the things he cares most about fighting. Marcus felt hope growing in his chest for the first time in weeks. Maybe he didn't have to face this alone after all. What do you need me to do? He asked. First, we need you to write down everything Mr. Brennan has said and done to you since you started here. Every unfair grade, every discriminatory comment, every time he treated you differently than other students. Include dates and times if you can remember them. Marcus nodded. I can do that. Second, David added, We need you to save copies of all your graded work. Don't just keep the papers. Take photos of other students' papers too when you can, so we can show the different standards he's using. And third, Emma said, we need you to keep attending class and acting normal. If he realizes we're building a case against him, he might become more careful or try to retaliate. Sarah leaned across the table and looked Marcus in the eyes. Most importantly, we need you to not give up. I know this has been horrible for you. I know you're probably thinking about transferring or dropping out of advanced classes, but if you do that, he wins, and the next student like you will face the same thing. Marcus felt strength flowing back into him for the first time in weeks. He wasn't alone in this fight anymore. I won't give up, he said firmly. This is too important. Good, Sarah said, because we're going to expose him for what he really is, and we're going to make sure this never happens to another student at Whitmore Academy. That afternoon, Marcus went to physics class with a completely different mindset. Instead of dreading Mr. Brennan's discrimination, he was watching for it and documenting it. Every unfair comment, every ignored raised hand, every cruel look. It was all evidence now. When Mr. Brennan made another comment about students who were unprepared for academic rigor, Marcus didn't feel defeated. He felt angry, and that anger was giving him strength. After class, Sarah caught up with him in the hallway. How did that feel? She asked. Different, Marcus admitted. Like I had some power back. That's because you do have power. We all do, but only if we use it together. That evening, Marcus sat at his desk and began writing down everything he could remember about his experiences with Mr. Brennan. The list grew longer and longer as details came flooding back. The unfair grades, the ignored questions, the accusations of cheating, the suggestions that he didn't belong. It was all part of a clear pattern of discrimination. For the first time since starting at Whitmore Academy, Marcus felt like he was fighting back instead of just enduring. He had allies now, and together they were going to make sure justice was served. As he wrote, Marcus thought about all the students who had suffered under Mr. Brennan's prejudice over the years. Students who had given up on their dreams because one racist teacher made them feel like they weren't smart enough or good enough. This wasn't just about Marcus anymore. This was about making sure no other student would have to face what he had faced. This was about proving that discrimination had no place in education. No matter how powerful the person perpetrating it, Marcus smiled as he continued, writing. Mr. Brennan had made a serious mistake when he chose to target a student who had friends, willing to fight for what was right. Sarah's father, Mr. Chen, was exactly what Marcus had hoped for in an ally. He was a tall, serious man with kind eyes and a reputation for taking on difficult civil rights cases. When Sarah brought Marcus to their house that Saturday morning, Mr. Chen was already prepared with legal pads, a recording device, and a list of questions. Marcus, Mr. Chen said as they sat in his home office, I want you to know that what you're describing is not just wrong, it's illegal. No student should face discrimination based on their race or background. Marcus felt nervous but determined. Over the past week, he and his friends had gathered more evidence than he had thought possible. Sarah has shown me some of the recordings, Mr. Chen continued. They're quite disturbing. But before we proceed, I need to understand the full scope of what's been happening. Marcus took a deep breath and began telling his story from the beginning. He described his first day in Mr. Brennan's class, the teacher's immediate hostility, and the escalating pattern of unfair treatment. Mr. Chen took careful notes, occasionally asking for clarification or specific details about dates and witnesses. The research paper incident is particularly serious, Mr. Chen said when Marcus finished. Falsely accusing a student of plagiarism can damage their academic record permanently. I saved a copy of the paper before I turned it in, Marcus said, pulling out a flash drive. Sarah suggested I document everything. Smart girl, Mr. Chen said proudly, looking at his daughter. Sarah, show me the recordings you've collected. Sarah connected her phone to her father's computer. Together, they reviewed hours of audio and video evidence. Marcus watched Mr. Chen's expression grow darker as he heard Mr. Brennan's discriminatory comments. This is more than enough to justify a formal complaint, Mr. Chen said finally. But I want to build the strongest possible case. Have you found other students who experienced similar treatment? David and Emma had been busy all week tracking down former students. They had collected contact information for 6 students who had taken Mr. Brennan's class over the past 5 years. We found Maria Santos, Sarah reported. She graduated 2 years ago. Mr. Brennan consistently questioned her English skills even though she was born in California and spoke perfect English. There's also James Wright, David added. He's African American like Marcus. He said Mr. Brennan made him feel so unwelcome that he dropped out of advanced physics after just one semester. Emma spoke up. And my brother Tyler confirmed that Mr. Brennan made homophobic comments. He said other LGBT students had similar experiences. Mr. Chen nodded grimly. We're looking at a pattern of discrimination spanning multiple years and targeting various minority groups. This is exactly the kind of systematic bias that civil rights laws are designed to address. What's our next step? Marcus asked. First, I'm going to contact these former students and ask them to provide sworn statements about their experiences. Then we'll request a meeting with the school administration. Will they listen to us? Sarah asked. Her father's expression was serious. They'll listen, because they'll understand the legal consequences if they don't. Schools have a legal obligation to provide equal educational opportunities regardless of race, gender, or sexual orientation. The following Monday, Mr. Chen called Whitmore Academy to request a meeting with Principal Harrison. Marcus went to physics class as usual, but now he felt like he was working undercover. Gathering evidence for a larger mission, Mr. Brennan seemed to sense that something was different. He was more careful with his comments, but he couldn't completely hide his bias. When Marcus answered a question correctly about electromagnetic radiation, the teacher's response was telling. Adequate, Mr. Brennan said dismissively, even though Marcus's answer had been more detailed and accurate than any other student's. Sarah caught it all on her hidden recording device. 2 days later, Mr. Chen received a call from Principal Harrison's office. The principal wanted to meet as soon as possible. He sounds nervous, Mr. Chen told Marcus and Sarah that evening. That's usually a good sign. It means they're taking this seriously. The meeting was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. Marcus felt anxious as the day approached. This would be his first time formally challenging a teacher's authority, and he wasn't sure what to expect. Principal Harrison was a thin man in his 50s with gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses. His office was impressive, with dark wood furniture and diplomas covering the walls. Marcus could see that he was trying to project authority, but there was uncertainty in his eyes. Mr. Chen, thank you for coming in, Principal Harrison said as they took seats around a conference table. I understand you have some concerns about Mr. Brennan's teaching methods. I have concerns about Mr. Brennan's discriminatory treatment of my client, Mr. Chen replied formally. This is Marcus Johnson, the student who has been subjected to ongoing harassment and bias. Principal Harrison looked uncomfortable. Now let's not jump to conclusions. Mr. Brennan is a respected teacher with 20 years of experience. Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. Mr. Chen opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. I don't think there's any misunderstanding. I have extensive documentation of discriminatory behavior, including audio and video recordings. The principal's face went pale. Recordings? Student-initiated recordings of classroom interactions, Mr. Chen clarified. All perfectly legal under state law. Mr. Chen played several of the most damaging audio clips. Principal Harrison listened with growing alarm as Mr. Brennan's voice clearly demonstrated bias against Marcus and other minority students. This is concerning, the principal admitted when the recordings finished. It's more than concerning, Mr. Chen said firmly. It's illegal discrimination that violates federal civil rights laws. And it's been going on for years. He handed Principal Harrison a stack of sworn statements from former students. 6 former Whitmore students have provided testimony about similar treatment by Mr. Brennan. This represents a clear pattern of discriminatory behavior. Principal Harrison read through the statements with obvious distress. I had no idea this was happening. Ignorance isn't a defense when it comes to civil rights violations, Mr. Chen replied. The school has a legal obligation to ensure equal treatment for all students. Marcus watched the principal's reaction carefully. He could see the man calculating the potential damage to the school's reputation and legal exposure. What do you want us to do? Principal Harrison asked finally. First, I want a formal investigation into Mr. Brennan's conduct. Second, I want Marcus's grades reviewed by an independent party to correct any unfair assessments. Third, I want assurances that there will be no retaliation against Marcus or the students who supported him. And if we refuse? The principal asked nervously. Mr. Chen's expression hardened. Then I'll file a federal civil rights lawsuit and contact the media. I have reporters who would be very interested in a story about systematic discrimination at one of the state's most prestigious private schools. The threat hung in the air like a bomb. Marcus could see Principal Harrison imagining the headlines and the damage to Whitmore Academy's reputation. I'll need to discuss this with the school board, the principal said. Finally, you have 48 hours, Mr. Chen replied. After that, I assume you're not interested in resolving this quietly. As they left the school, Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and fear. Things were moving fast now and there would be no going back. How do you think that went? He asked Mr. Chen. Better than I expected, the lawyer replied. He's scared, which means he understands the seriousness of the situation. Schools like Whitmore Academy can't afford major discrimination scandals. That evening, Marcus called his mother to tell her what was happening. He had been dreading this conversation, but he knew she deserved to know the truth. "Baby, why didn't you tell me about this sooner?" she asked after he explained everything. "I didn't want to worry you. I know how hard you've worked to get me into this school." "Marcus Johnson, you listen to me," his mother said firmly. "No school is worth your dignity and self-respect. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Are you disappointed that there might be problems with my scholarship?" "I'm disappointed that there are people in this world who judge children by the color of their skin instead of the content of their character," she replied. "But I'm not disappointed in you. You're showing more courage than most adults would." The next day at school, word had somehow spread that there was an investigation into Mr. Brennan. Students whispered in hallways, and Marcus noticed several teachers looking at him with new interest. In physics class, Mr. Brennan was clearly on edge. He was more formal than usual and seemed to be choosing his words carefully. But Marcus could still see the hatred in his eyes. After class, Mr. Brennan called Marcus to his desk. "Mr. Johnson, I hope you understand that making false accusations against teachers can have serious consequences for your academic future," he said quietly. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. This was exactly the kind of retaliation Mr. Chen had warned about. "I'm not making false accusations, sir. I'm just telling the truth about what I've experienced." Mr. Brennan's smile was cold and threatening. "The truth can be subjective. I'd hate to see a promising young man like yourself make mistakes that could follow him for the rest of his life." The investigation began immediately. Within 2 days of the school board's decision, a team of investigators arrived at Whitmore Academy. They were led by Dr. Patricia Williams, an expert in educational discrimination cases who had been hired by the school district. Marcus felt nervous as he was called to meet with Dr. Williams for the first time. She was a professional woman in her 40s with short gray hair and a kind but serious expression. "Marcus, I want you to know that this investigation is completely confidential," Dr. Williams began as they sat in an empty classroom. "You can speak freely without worrying about retaliation." "Mr. Brennan already threatened me," Marcus admitted. "He said making accusations could hurt my academic future." Dr. Williams made a note on her pad. "That kind of intimidation is exactly what we're looking for. Tell me everything, starting from your first day in his class." Marcus spent 2 hours telling his story in detail. Dr. Williams asked careful questions and took extensive notes. She seemed particularly interested in the pattern of unfair grading and the plagiarism accusation. "I'd like to review your research paper," she said. "The one Mr. Brennan claimed was plagiarized." Marcus handed her a copy of the paper along with all his research notes and source materials. "This is quite impressive work," Dr. Williams said as she flipped through the pages. "The analysis is sophisticated and the citations are proper. I'll have an independent expert review it, but this certainly doesn't look like plagiarism to me." Over the next week, Dr. Williams interviewed dozens of people. She spoke with Marcus's classmates, other teachers, and several former students who had experienced similar treatment from Mr. Brennan. The investigation also uncovered something that shocked everyone: security camera footage. Whitmore Academy had cameras in all hallways and common areas. While they didn't record inside classrooms, they did capture interactions between Mr. Brennan and students outside of class. Dr. Williams found footage of Mr. Brennan speaking dismissively to Marcus after class, ignoring him in hallways while greeting other students warmly, and having heated conversations with him that looked clearly confrontational. But the most damaging evidence came from an unexpected source: Mr. Brennan's own email account. As part of the investigation, the school board required Mr. Brennan to provide access to his work email. What they found was devastating. Dr. Williams called Marcus and Mr. Chen to a meeting on Friday afternoon. "I need to show you something," she said, opening her laptop. "We found several emails between Mr. Brennan and colleagues that are quite revealing." She pulled up an email sent to another teacher 3 weeks after Marcus started at Whitmore Academy. "This new scholarship student in my advanced physics class is going to be a problem. These inner-city kids always think they're smarter than they really are. I give him 2 months before he realizes he's in over his head and transfers back to where he belongs." Marcus felt sick reading it. Seeing his teacher's prejudice spelled out so clearly was worse than experiencing it in person. "There's more," Dr. Williams said grimly. She showed them another email from 2 weeks later. "The Johnson kid is persistent, I'll give him that. But persistence doesn't make up for lack of natural ability. I'm making sure his grades reflect realistic expectations rather than grade inflation from his previous school." Mr. Chen was taking notes furiously. "This is admission of discriminatory grading practices." "It gets worse," Dr. Williams continued. She showed them an email sent just after Marcus submitted his research paper. "I'm going to fail Johnson's research paper for plagiarism. The work is too sophisticated for someone of his background. Even if he didn't technically copy it, he clearly had inappropriate help. These diversity admits need to learn their limitations." Marcus stared at the screen in shock. Mr. Brennan had decided to fail his paper before even reading it, purely because he believed a black student couldn't produce high-quality work. "This is clear evidence of racial discrimination," Mr. Chen said angrily. "He's admitting that he graded Marcus differently because of his race and background." Dr. Williams nodded. "We also found emails going back several years where he made similar comments about other minority students. There's a clear pattern of discriminatory behavior." She showed them more emails discussing problem students who were all minorities, comments about lowering standards for diversity admits, and communications with other teachers where Mr. Brennan complained about the school accepting unqualified scholarship students. "How many students has he done this to?" Marcus asked quietly. "Based on our investigation, at least 15 students over the past 5 years," Dr. Williams replied. "We've been able to contact most of them, and their stories are remarkably similar to yours." Marcus felt angry and sad at the same time. 15 students who had been made to feel like they didn't belong, who had their confidence destroyed, who might have given up on their dreams because of one teacher's racism. "What happens now?" Mr. Chen asked. "Mr. Brennan has been suspended pending the completion of our investigation," Dr. Williams said. "Based on what we've found, I'll be recommending his immediate termination." Marcus felt a mixture of relief and vindication. Finally, someone in authority was taking the situation seriously. "There's something else," Dr. Williams continued. "We had an independent expert review your research paper. Marcus, Dr. Sarah Mitchell from the state university examined it thoroughly." She handed Marcus a letter on university letterhead. "Dr. Mitchell says your paper demonstrates graduate-level understanding of quantum computing principles. She's recommending it for publication in a peer-reviewed undergraduate research journal." Marcus read the letter in amazement. His paper, the one Mr. Brennan had failed for plagiarism, was good enough to be published in an academic journal. "This is incredible," Mr. Chen said. Not only was the plagiarism accusation false, but the work was actually exceptional. Dr. Williams smiled. "There's more good news. We've reviewed all of Marcus's grades in Mr. Brennan's class with help from other physics teachers. The consensus is that his work has been consistently excellent and was graded far below appropriate standards." She handed Marcus another document. "These are your corrected grades based on fair assessment of your work." Marcus looked at the paper and couldn't believe what he saw. Instead of C's and D's, his corrected grades were almost all A's. His GPA in physics went from a 2.1 to a 3.9. "I can't believe this," Marcus said softly. "Believe it," Dr. Williams replied. "You've been performing at the top of your class all along. Mr. Brennan's discrimination was the only thing holding you back." The investigation's findings were presented to the school board that Monday. Marcus wasn't present for the meeting, but Mr. Chen was allowed to attend as his representative. The board meeting was closed to the public, but word of what happened spread quickly through the school. Mr. Brennan was terminated immediately. The board voted unanimously to fire him and revoke his teaching license. They also voted to report his conduct to the state education department to ensure he couldn't teach anywhere else, but the consequences went beyond just Mr. Brennan. The investigation had revealed systematic problems with how the school handled discrimination complaints. Dr. Williams discovered that several students had tried to report Mr. Brennan's behavior over the years, but their complaints had been dismissed or ignored. The school's complaint process was inadequate and biased toward protecting teachers over students. Principal Harrison was placed on administrative leave pending a review of his handling of discrimination issues. Several other administrators were required to undergo sensitivity training. The story broke in the local newspaper 2 days later. A reporter had gotten wind of the investigation and published an article titled "Prestigious Academy Fires Teacher for Racial Discrimination." The article detailed Mr. Brennan's pattern of bias and included quotes from several former students who had been affected by his discrimination. Marcus was interviewed, but his name was kept confidential at his request. "I just want other students to know that they don't have to accept unfair treatment," Marcus told the reporter. "There are people who will listen and help if you speak up." The story was picked up by regional and then national news outlets. Whitmore Academy found itself in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Marcus watched the coverage with mixed feelings. He was glad that the truth was finally out, but he also worried about how the negative publicity might affect the school and his fellow students. His concerns were addressed when the new interim principal, Dr. Janet Rodriguez, called an assembly for all students. "What happened in Mr. Brennan's classroom was unacceptable and does not represent the values of Whitmore Academy," she announced to the packed auditorium. "We are committed to ensuring that every student, regardless of their background, feels welcome and valued here." She outlined new policies the school was implementing: mandatory diversity training for all faculty, an independent ombudsman to handle discrimination complaints, and regular reviews of grading practices to ensure fairness. "We will not tolerate discrimination in any form," Dr. Rodriguez continued, "and we will support any student who has the courage to speak up against injustice." After the assembly, Marcus was surrounded by classmates who wanted to congratulate him and express their support. 6 months after Mr. Brennan's termination, Marcus walked into the state science fair with confidence he hadn't felt since his first day at Whitmore Academy. His project on quantum error correction was set up at table number 47, surrounded by experiments from the brightest high school students in the state. Mrs. Foster had encouraged him to enter the competition after seeing his exceptional work in her class. Under her guidance, Marcus had flourished in ways he never imagined possible. His grades had improved dramatically, and more importantly, his love for physics had been restored. "Nervous?" Sarah asked as she adjusted the display board for her own project on renewable energy systems. "A little," Marcus admitted, "but it's good nervous, like I'm excited to show what I can do." David and Emma were also competing in the fair. The 4 friends had become even closer after their experience fighting Mr. Brennan's discrimination. They had learned that standing up for what's right creates bonds that last forever. The judges began making their rounds. Marcus watched as they stopped at each table, asking detailed questions about the students' research and methodology. When they reached his table, Marcus felt his heart racing. The 3 judges included Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the university professor who had reviewed his original research paper. "Mr. Johnson," Dr. Mitchell said with a smile, "I'm very interested to hear about your work on quantum error correction." Marcus began explaining his project, describing how quantum computers could use special codes to detect and fix errors caused by environmental interference. His presentation was clear, confident, and demonstrated deep understanding of extremely complex concepts. The judges asked challenging questions about quantum decoherence, error syndrome detection, and fault-tolerant computing. Marcus answered each question thoroughly, even drawing diagrams to illustrate his points. "Impressive work," said Dr. Robert Chen, one of the other judges. "This is graduate-level research. How did you become interested in this topic?" "I've been fascinated by quantum mechanics since I started taking advanced physics," Marcus explained. "I wanted to understand not just how quantum computers work, but how to make them reliable enough for practical use." After the judges moved on, Mrs. Foster approached Marcus's table with a proud smile. "That was excellent," she said. You explained complex concepts in a way that was both accurate and accessible. That's the mark of true understanding. Thank you for encouraging me to enter, Marcus replied. A year ago, I wasn't sure I belonged in advanced science classes. Now I'm competing at the state level. You've always belonged here, Mrs. Foster said firmly. You just needed teachers who recognized your potential instead of trying to diminish it. The awards ceremony was held that evening in the convention center's main auditorium. Marcus sat with his friends and Mrs. Foster, watching as prizes were announced. In various categories. Third place in the physics division goes to Jennifer Walsh from Central High School for her work on photovoltaic efficiency, the announcer said. Marcus applauded politely, but his heart was beating fast. There were only 2 more awards in his category. Second place in the physics division goes to Michael Torres from Riverside Academy for his analysis of superconductor properties. Marcus felt disappointed but tried not to show it. Second place would have been amazing, but he had really hoped to win. And first place in the physics division, with a project that impressed all our judges with its sophistication and potential real-world applications, goes to Marcus Johnson from Whitmore Academy for his research on quantum error correction protocols. Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had won first place at the state science fair. Sarah, David, and Emma were cheering beside him. Mrs. Foster had tears in her eyes. As Marcus walked to the stage to accept his award, he thought about how different his life had become. A year ago, he was being told he didn't belong in advanced classes. Now he was being recognized as one of the best young scientists in the state. The trophy was beautiful, a crystal prism that split light into rainbow colors. But more important than the award itself was what it represented, validation that his dreams were achievable. After the ceremony, Dr. Mitchell approached Marcus and his family. Congratulations, she said warmly. I have some exciting news for you. Based on your science fair project and your previous research paper, MIT has expressed interest in meeting with you. Marcus stared at her in shock. MIT was one of the top science universities in the world. They're looking for exceptional students who might be good candidates for their early admission program, Dr. Mitchell continued. Your work in quantum computing has caught their attention. Marcus's mother, who had taken the day off work to attend the science fair, started crying with joy. My baby might go to MIT, she whispered, hugging Marcus tightly. Nothing's guaranteed, Dr. Mitchell cautioned, but they definitely want to talk to you. I can arrange a meeting when you're ready. That night, Marcus called Mr. Chen to share the good news about his science fair victory and the MIT opportunity. I'm so proud of you, Mr. Chen said. You've shown incredible resilience and determination. More importantly, you've proven that justice can prevail when people are willing to fight for it. I wanted to thank you again for everything you did, Marcus said. Without your help, I probably would have given up and transferred schools. You never would have given up, Mr. Chen replied. You have too much strength and character for that. I just helped you find the tools to fight back. The media attention for Marcus's science fair victory brought renewed focus to the changes at Whitmore Academy. The school had implemented comprehensive reforms since the discrimination scandal, and Marcus had become an unofficial spokesperson for the positive changes. A local news station interviewed him about his experience in the school's transformation. Whitmore Academy is completely different now, Marcus told the reporter. The new policies ensure that every student is treated fairly regardless of their background. And teachers like Mrs. Foster are helping all students reach their potential. The interview aired during the evening news, and Marcus received messages of support from around the country. Former students who had faced similar discrimination at other schools thanked him for speaking out. Current students at Whitmore expressed gratitude for the changes his courage had brought about. But perhaps the most meaningful response came from an unexpected source. James Wright, the former Whitmore student who had dropped out of advanced physics because of Mr. Brennan's treatment. James had seen the news coverage and reached out to Marcus through social media. I wanted to thank you for doing what I was too scared to do, James wrote. When Mr. Brennan made me feel like I didn't belong in advanced classes, I gave up on my dream of becoming an engineer. But seeing your courage has inspired me to go back to school and pursue my goals again. Marcus was moved to tears by the message. This was bigger than his own success. His actions had helped other students reclaim their dreams. 3 months later, Marcus received the letter he had been waiting for. MIT had accepted him into their early admission program, offering him a full scholarship to study quantum physics and computer science. As he read the acceptance letter, Marcus thought about the journey that had brought him to this moment. The discrimination and humiliation he had faced had been terrible, but it had also taught him important lessons about standing up for justice and never giving up on his dreams. Marcus framed 2 items and hung them on his bedroom wall: his MIT acceptance letter and a photo from the day Mr. Brennan was fired. The contrast between them told the story of his transformation from a student who was made to feel unwelcome to a young scientist with unlimited potential. On graduation day, Marcus was chosen as valedictorian of his class. As he stood at the podium looking out at his classmates and their families, he thought carefully about what message he wanted to leave behind. 3 years ago, I came to Whitmore Academy as a scared scholarship student who wasn't sure he belonged here, Marcus began. I faced challenges that tested not just my academic abilities, but my belief in myself and in the fairness of the world. He paused and looked at Sarah, David, and Emma in the audience. But I learned that no one has to face injustice alone. When we stand together and support each other, we can overcome any obstacle. The changes at our school prove that speaking up against discrimination can create lasting positive change. Marcus spotted Mrs. Foster in the crowd and smiled. I also learned that great teachers don't just share knowledge. They believe in their students and help them believe in themselves. To the teachers who supported me and to the friends who stood by me, thank you for showing me what education should really be about. He concluded his speech with a message for future students. To anyone who feels like they don't belong, or who faces unfair treatment, remember that your worth is not determined by others' prejudices. Work hard. Find allies who will support you and never give up on your dreams. The world needs your talents and you have every right to pursue excellence. The audience erupted in applause. Marcus's mother was crying with pride, and even some of the teachers had tears in their eyes. After the ceremony, Marcus was surrounded by classmates, teachers, and family members offering congratulations.